this is Lisa for The Purchase Brick, and I'm here today with James Labrie of Dream Theater.
Hi.
So, tell me a little bit about the new album.
Well, Black Clouds and Silver Linings. It's our 10th album, and what can I tell you? I think musically there's a lot of areas throughout the album where you can see that we're taking a noticeable nod towards our roots, our musical roots. I think that if you were familiar and a diehard fan, you would hear some of the influences from Images and Words and Awake and even A Change of Seasons and Scenes from a Memory. That there's similarities there, but at the same time it sounds very contemporary. It sounds like it does belong in today's musical environment as far as that style. And lyrically it's dealing with, I think, what every one of us can relate to a certain extent. We all have our own personal experiences, but life itself, with its challenges and its victories, and just how dynamic life can be, you know. But kind of, you know, without getting deeply into it, that kind of sheds sunlight onto it. Yeah.
And what would you say makes this album different from your past albums? Like, what's unique about Black Clouds and Silver Linings?
Well, I mean, I think sonically we're always trying to bring in new, especially Jordan. He's always trying to bring something in that will somehow convey a stronger message, you know, throughout his rig, and somehow embellish whatever the message is that we're trying to send musically. So I think that that's always an experimentation, you know, and that always has some new elements to show within each album. But I mean, you know, I think that musically, I think that this album, it shows, like our biggest priority is that we feel that we want to be able to look back on any one album and say, well, you know, from our most recent to the one previously, that we've grown once again as a band musically, and that we feel that we're still evolving, you know, and I think that it really does show itself, that I think that our songwriting is becoming better, you know, just simply better. I think it's more focused, not that it wasn't focused before, but there's more cohesiveness as to its direction, where it's going. It sounds, you know, it's very fluid-like, you know, easy going along with it, and I think that really establishes the energy and power in it, as well as the balance musically, you know, as to what it's expressing. So that might be some of the differences, but I mean that does exist on a lot of the other albums. So.
So where do you guys get your inspiration from, and how do you, like, what's the songwriting process like for you? Do you guys come up with stuff as a whole, or does one person, like, think of something and then you guys all share it
It's
together?
usually as a whole, you know, but generally speaking, yeah, it's in the studio, and it would be, you know, basically with the instruments all set up. We kind of record the way that they used to in the 70s. They'd be in a studio with all the equipment set up, all you know, everything's mic'd and ready to go. So once it might come from John Bertucci or Jordan or whoever with a seed, you know, like, hey guys, what do you think of this? Whether it's Mike playing a groove on his drums or John fiddling around the guitar or whatever, some of that comes from, like, those guys having a seed, and then from there kind of grow, you know, establishing it and embellishing on that idea, and one thing kind of leads to another. So in a lot of instances it's like that, and once we feel that there's a concrete idea and it's finished, you know, the message has been completed as far as that song goes, then immediately Mike will jump in and start actually tracking the real drums for it. So it'll be these ghost tracks of guitar and keyboards and bass, but then it's him actually getting in there and getting the drums done while it's fresh in his head as to where all the movements were going and how that song was basically, you know, brought to where it is. And then from there, sometimes, you know, the bass will be laid down but more than likely it's the rhythm guitar, and then from there it's to jump into the next idea. But you know, sometimes an idea will come from a guy going, you know, like whether Jordan or John say, hey, you know what, I had this from home, what do you guys think? Here's some ideas, and what do you think? And then, oh yeah, that's cool, that's not, and
Right.
whatever, and then piecing it together that way. And then finally, I mean, once all the music has been written, and those guys are done with that part of it, then it's melodies for the song, vocal melodies, and then it's lyrics, and then I come in. So basically, just before me, Jordan gets done all his keyboards, all the real tracks. I mean, Petrucci's already done his guitar, mostly his rhythm. There might be the odd solo left. John Mayung has more than likely done his bass, and then I come in and finish all the vocals at the very end.
So where did you guys come up with the album name for Black Clouds and Silver Linings?
You'd have to ask Mike that.
Mike
Yeah.
came up with the album
I'm
name?
pretty sure he did. Yeah, him and John usually come up with those titles, and but I think, yeah, I'm pretty sure he came up with it. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know why I'm only in a band. Yeah.
So how do you guys balance building Dream Theater while working on all your solo projects as well?
Well, you know, I mean, I guess it's time management. I mean, you just have to, you figure it out. We all have families, so it's a matter of saying, you know, at what time of the day do I want to be, like when you're on the road, it might be a little bit easier. Like right now, I'm writing my next solo album with Matt Guillory, my main partner in there, and we've been collaborating for like 10 years now. But so what I generally do is if I have time on the bus while we're going down the road for about an hour or so, I might sit in the back lounge of the bus and just jot down some lyrical ideas or the subject matter that I might want to talk about, and just kind of get it out of me. And then otherwise, when we have a day off, I usually sit in my room and start writing melodies or even some of the riffs for the songs, and then I get in touch with Matt and over the internet. The internet's a beautiful thing, and then we kind of piece it together. So that's basically how I do it. And then the actual recording is usually when we're on a break.
Right.
So usually, you know, in between legs. So if we're up for 4 weeks, and then I know we're going to be home for 3 weeks, maybe one of those weeks or 10 days of that 3 weeks, I'll try and get into the studio and try and get some of this stuff recorded. So that's how I do it. I don't know how the other, the other guys have their methods, obviously. Yeah.